In this lesson, I want to talk a little bit more about setting the font sizes, and then we're going to set up our navigation bar to actually look like a navigation bar. So typically within a website, we've set our font family, and we're also going to set a font size. So font size is, you can set any size you want. You can use different values, different units for size measurement. So we've been using pix, but we can also use EM. So EM, what essentially EM means is it's in relation to the size of the current font. So 1 EM is equivalent to the current font size. So if we do a 1.2 EM, that's going to be slightly bigger than the current font size. And if we did a 2.2, it would be twice 0.2 the current font size. So this is just a unit that it's always a good idea to set these offhand, and this also gives you the ability, if you want to set for paragraphs and you want to have specific font size just for anything contained within a paragraph. So maybe you want to have it 1 EM for the paragraph size. So that will give you a little bit of diversion from different content areas within your web page. And you can also go to set your typography. So if you've got your H1s, and sometimes those H1s get really large, or sometimes you even want them really large on your website. So this is where you can set different things like the heading size. So we can set a 2 EM size. So there it stands out quite a bit more. We can also go down and do an H2, and maybe we want the H2s to be equivalent to the H1s, so we could have them within the same size, and so on. So a number of different ways to represent this type of content. And if you are setting the H1s, H2s, you probably should set the rest of the handling of the header sizes so that you don't have any kind of varying sizes in case you do use them. So you could set your H3s and slightly smaller than the H2s and moving all the way down. So maybe this could be a 1.8, this could be a 1.5, and then you could set all of your H4s, so H4, H5, and H6s to be the same font size. And maybe you don't want them to shrink below the 1 EM size. So in this lesson, we're going to build out the rest of our navigation bar. And I'm going to actually assign a class to the navigation bar, and I'm going to give a class of nav. So this is in case we decide to use the nav tag somewhere else, that it's not interfering with the way our content is being displayed out. I'm going to put it above the main and the sidebar, but underneath the wrapper, because this is like essentially the order that these elements are falling in. I'm going to take these ones and move them below. So these are some of the default ones. So these are defaults. These are the tags, main typography, and so on. And then below that, I've got the wrapper, and then below that, I've got the IDs here. So that I have a good way of kind of reading through and understanding how my CSS is being laid out. So now we want to go to the navbar and make some updates to the way the content is being presented. So if we notice that we've done it, the navbar, we've got an unordered list. So this is one of the first things that I usually like to take care of and get rid of are the default styling for the unordered list. So that's the padding there. So just to make sure that I set it at 0 pix, and also margin. So it doesn't by default have a margin, but it did have some padding. So it pulled it all the way over to the left-hand side. So you can see that now we're pulled over to the left-hand side right away just by updating that. I can also update. So if I don't remove out that padding, we see we've got the list items there. So we should definitely take care of those as well. So nav class list item, and we're going to remove out all of the list style types. So we've got an option to set different style types. So this is another way that you can actually transform an unordered list into an ordered list. So just to show you how that works, so we can actually transform the type of the list style type. So that's a really neat thing, but for now what we want to do is we want to completely remove those bullet points. We also want to have a horizontal menu. So we don't want to have this vertical style where if we have a whole bunch of different list items, it's going to continue to go and flow down. So I want to remove out all of those that styling there, and I want to make it float. So this is going to be the same thing that we looked at earlier where we can float different elements. So I'm going to just float the list items to the left of each other. And also I'm going to add in a border so we can easily identify where the end of the list item is. So one pixel solid, and I'm going to add a really light border. So there we go. So now we can see and identify all of our list items. So next, what we want to do is look at the hyperlinks. And so we can identify those. So we've got a class nav list item, and we're going to identify the anchors that are within those list items. And this is where we can make it differentiate from the actual hyperlinks that are throughout the web page itself. So let's add in, first of all, let's add in a background color so it really stands out. So let's pick something, maybe not that color. So pick something that really does stand out there. We also see that the text is right up against the border there, so let's add in some padding there. So maybe we can do 10 pixels all the way around, so that can really style that out quite a bit better there. I shrink that down a bit. And refresh the page. So now we've got all of our hyperlinks there, we've got some padding there. I want to display it as a block. And essentially what this is going to do is, if you saw there, essentially it just adds that block styling to each hyperlink. So block is the same thing that happens with divs, where it takes all of that allocated space. Also, I want to make sure that the text decoration is removed. So I know we've already done it over there on the hyperlinks, but whenever you're styling out your individual elements, it's always a good idea, even if you have to repeat certain properties, to add those in just in case you decide to remove those and then your navigation bar all of a sudden has underlines to it. So we want to make sure that we're accounting for any changes that might be up and coming in the website. And also, I want to change the color of the font to be something different than what our default is for our hyperlinks, because we want to be able to distinguish them from the actual hyperlinks. So let's turn them gray like that. And we might even want to do a black background. So, or maybe we want to do a white and a black. So it really stands out. So now we can see how our navigation bar looks. And now it's still missing something, because typically with a navigation bar, whenever you hover over it, something happens. So this is the same thing that we looked at earlier with the hyperlinks, where we've got that pseudo styling there that we add in the hover. So let's copy this one out. And we're going to do the same thing that we did up at the top, where we add in hover. And now we can add some additional properties for hover. And I'm going to just reverse out white, and I'm going to change the color to black. So there we go. So now we have a fully functional navigation bar. Whenever we hover over it, something's happening, and the user coming in can really easily tell that this is a navigation bar meant within our website design. So in the next lesson, we're also going to continue to look at some of the additional commonly used CSS properties that are available when you're building out and you're styling your website. So that's coming up in the next set of lessons.